It can't be overstated how much of a spectacle Zhang is to see. That big, that skillful, that precise, that fast, but that gas tank, right? Kabayel was dealing with a monster. In order to slay a monster, you have to have a monstrous attitude. Now, in this brief breakdown, we're going to cover some of the key details, but later, after the entire card is done, we're going to go into even more detail, so stick around, turn the notification bell on, but before you have to do that, you have to subscribe first and hit the like button while you're at it. Now, let's talk about some key pieces of this fight and how this relates to 90s heavyweights. You see in this first round, Zhang has some spring in his step, but when you're a literal giant, you can only have so much spring in your step for an extended period of time. And you can see him trying to box off that back foot, looking dangerous, looking clean, and he's very smooth. You can see him probing with the lead hand, and then when he sees Kabayel entering into range, he can back up and take that step to the outside with the lead hook. So to me, there's no question about Zhang's skills, a very underrated skill set. But just because he punches so hard, we kind of overlook some of the small things he's doing with his footwork and with his angles as a big southpaw. Again, just another example of him being skilled. He's standing there in the high guard expecting Kabayel to come forward, and when he starts coming forward, he has this counter lead hook waiting for him, and he just slips out of range at the same time too, shoulder in the way. So he has an underrated skill set. That's just what I'm here to point out. 6'6", 280-pound giant, but you can see the Olympic pedigree. Oh yeah, and another thing I left out, he likes that left hand on the exit following a right hook, which we're gonna see later on. So he's smooth, and he has one of the best straight left hands in boxing, in my opinion. It's one of the smoothest punches just in boxing, especially for his size. Now, we can gush over the skills some more later, but the beautiful thing about boxing is that skills is only a part of the equation. Another part of the equation, other than physical capability, right, is attitude. And Kabayel comes out super aggressive, and not just with his footwork, but with his lead hand. He's pushing him back with the lead hand, invading his space, trying to create openings, trying to get into range. Now, the danger for Kabayel is he has to stay in close range, because if he even tries to break out into mid-range, and not even just on the outside, but even just getting into mid-range, Zhang is going to have something waiting for him there. So that's an important point to recognize also. When he tries to, when the range is kind of separated just for a little bit, like from the inside to mid-range, Zhang is going to be looking for a counter to catch him leaving range. Now, Kabayel does something very smart. He's constantly pawing and slapping with relatively weak shots up top, shots that are almost like feinting and probing. But they do either enough to make Zhang open up, which is good because it's going to make him work, and that's part of the game plan also, even if they're landing, which you don't want to be hit, but if it's wearing him down, that helps. The other option is doing what he's doing right now, which is forcing Zhang to become defensive, cover up. And when he's defensive, he can't be offensive, so now he can throw real legitimate body shots, and he can sit down on low shots. So those pawing shots earlier set up the body shots and allow him to close the distance. Again, 5 seconds into the next round, he comes out aggressive, instantly closing the distance with the 1-2 and starts working the body. So he's trying to break him down, and you can tell that's the attitude. He's setting the tone early in these rounds. Now, before the more obvious signs of fading start to set in, you can look at the subtle aspects of body language. As Zhang is resetting the stance, look how long it takes him to get back into his stance and get set. And because you can see the small breasts, there's so many small body language details that if we can see them on the screen, Kabayel can definitely see them in person. His eyes are trained on him like a bird, because he's a bird of prey. He's hunting Big Bang down. Now, despite being a gassed giant Olympian, he's still a giant Olympian. And the windows of explosiveness were closing ever since the third round, but there were still windows of explosiveness. And like we said earlier, in these exchanges, Zhang is really good with the angles, contorting his body to get into positions where he's hard to hit, but it's easy for him to land. Kabayel overextends, so he's kind of like squared up with Zhang, so he's directly aligned with the left hand. And like how we said, if they're in mid-range, Zhang is going to be looking for something. And that's exactly what he finds. He catches Kabayel out of position, drops him, and there you go. Now, when I say 90s heavyweight, I mean big dudes that aren't giants. They're heavyweights, but it's not just about having the boxing skill. It's about having the fighter mindset in conjunction with that. Kabayel, despite being dropped, does not take his foot off the gas. In fact, he speeds up and starts working the body even more, and that body work catches up to Big Bang. Now, just to wrap this up, because this card is moving along super fast, and we'll take a look at more later. Like I said, think of 90s heavyweights. They could punch with volume. They had great gas tanks, but they also had boxing skills, clean technique. They were tough and skilled. They were big dudes, but not giant dudes. That's why they could box like that for so long. That's what Kabayel is reminiscent of. That's why I'm comparing him to the 90s heavyweights. Usyk is a good example as well. The 90s heavyweights could fight and box. Now, Big Bang can definitely fight and box, but he's not built for the deep waters. And that's exactly where Kabayel took him. Fight Scientist, I'm out.